The St Lambert Experiment by Karina Beltrán, Ana Ordóñez, Lorena Patterson, and Erika Villanueva. In September 1965, the first experimental French immersion classes began in Quebec community of St Lambert. The South Shore Protestant Regional School Board approved the program after a group of English-speaking parents pressured the education board to implement it. They wanted their children to be fluent in French, being French the political majority in the country. The board and the provincial education minister asked W. E. Lambert, head of the language research group at McGill, to evaluate this program. This educational research was conducted using one experimental group, a group of students who will receive French instruction and gradually being introduced into English instruction, and two English-only control groups. Over the course of 4 years and using multiple instruments of evaluation, according to Lambert and Tucker, 1972, the experiment showed the group instructed in French perform as well academically as the English-only groups, while at the same time they became fluent in French. There was no sign of retardation in the students' academic learning, nor any noticeable gaps in their English skills. Lambert and Tucker, 1972, also speculated over the cognitive advantages such as comparing linguistic codes and transfer of skills across languages that the student in the experimental group had developed. This immersion program became the first most detailed and comprehensive experiment on bilingualism. It set the tone for other programs not only in Quebec. The positive results are indicative of a successful program that will not only academically instruct students in one language, but it will also allow them to acquire and develop a second language.
Gradually adding language 1 or home language as children continue through the program is a primary concept of the biliteracy model. From its inception, the St Lambert experiment intended to utilize the model of language distribution. The effect of such was termed home language switch. In this instance, students received instruction in the partner language. Participants in the St Lambert experiment were subjects of the 90-10 model of biliteracy, where on recreational or artistic classes they were taught in English or language 1, primary language, whereas the rest of the class, 90% of the day, students received instruction from instructors in language 2, French. Teachers hailed from Quebec and Belgium and had no experience in teaching in immersion. As a result, students experienced no cognitive delays in their instruction and gained an additional language, plus primary language with no loss to their academic progress. The board members accepted that the early immersion program was highly effective. The St. Lambert experiment served as a pioneer in regards to the biliteracy model. On the slide, you have a couple of examples that were part of this program. You have scaffolding, visual aids, and of course, cross-cultural writing opportunities. On the other hand, since this experiment or this program combined efforts of both parents and professionals, we can say that biliteracy is not the replacement of language 1, and it is also not a way to eliminate a student's culture. Initial immersion of the French language began for students at the kindergarten level. By first grade, students received majority of the content instruction in French, including their initial literacy instruction. By second grade, this is where students first receive a small percentage of the content in English. When looking at the language distributions, we can see the similarities to immersion programs, such as the 90-10 model, where students receive the majority of instruction in the target language, in this case, the French language. Starting in second grade, students receive about an hour of instruction in English, and the remaining of the content instruction is done in French. One of the connections that we can see from the St Lambert Experiment and Guiding Principles for Dual Language Education comes from Strand 1, where we see that one of the core goals of dual education is bilingualism and biliteracy, which matches the information from the St. Lambert Experiment, where both languages were valued by parents and larger society. The second connection we can see is that there is a clear pathway for students in the program. Under the St. Lambert Experiment, students in the kindergarten level began in full immersion, and it progressed to the 6th grade. A couple of other connections that we find come from Strand 7 and Strand 3. Under Strand 7, we find that the program is supported by all key stakeholders, which is one of the key components of the St. Lambert Experiment. This is where you find parents and administrators working together in the dual language program. Under Strand 3, instructional strategies support the attainment of the 3 core goals of dual language education. We find that one of the major components of the St. Lambert Experiment has the use of language 2 to teach the school curriculum.